How many of you are parents? All right. I'd like you to think for just a moment about your hopes and dreams for your children. These are my kids, Greta and Graham. I have high hopes for them. I hope that they help to make the world a better place, that they are part of a better future. That's why I'm here today to talk to you about something that is very important to me, empowering changemakers. So, what is a changemaker? Well, a changemaker is somebody who recognizes a problem and has the passion and drive to do something about it. Changemakers are often referred to as social innovators because they break free from constraints to solve problems in new ways. They draw together unusual allies from business, the social sector, government, the arts, volunteers, experts, and people from a diverse array of backgrounds. And they aim to make lasting change in the world. These are the people who will help make the hopes and dreams for my kids come true. But maybe they are my kids, or yours, or other young people in our community. And if so, what are we doing to support them? In our educational system today, we provide kids with a lot of knowledge. Knowledge on math, science, English, history, and so forth. And then we test them on this. And we test them over and over again through their 12 to 16 years in the educational system. So does this knowledge help them to make the world better? Well, it helps to inform them about the world. So that's a good start. But what else is needed? Well, there's a lot of national discussion and debate on the value of critical thinking skills. The jury is still out on how well our educational system equips young people with these skills. I'm not here today to argue one way or another about this, but rather to reflect on whether those critical thinking skills help us to bring about positive change. I argue that we need more than just critical thinking. We need to engage people in the art of critical doing. So allow me to introduce what I refer to as Changemaker Math. Don't worry, there's no calculus. So if we take critical thinking and we infuse it with inspired action, we get critical doing. And this critical doing can help to bring about change. So inspired action. In order for people to make change, they need to be inspired. Inspiration can come from a variety of sources. It can come from a feeling of empathy, seeing someone in need and wanting to do something about it. It can come from a passion for a particular issue or cause. It can even come from a feeling of a calling or a responsibility to do something. Now, once inspired, people need to act. And action involves doing, and doing, and doing, and more doing. It takes practice. So let's consider for a moment how we prepare people to become doctors. Would any of us argue that we should simply provide medical students with a lot of medical knowledge, help them to develop some really great critical thinking skills, and then simply send them out there to perform surgeries and to save lives? Of course not. There's a reason we call it practicing medicine. By the same token, would we expect the first brushstrokes of a young artist to result in the Mona Lisa? Or the first poundings of chopsticks to be transformed overnight into a beautiful Rachmaninoff concerto? Would we expect the first races of a young swimmer here in Evansville to be awarded the Olympic gold medal? Of course not. It takes practice. So how does this practice then translate into results that bring about change? Let me introduce just a little bit more Changemaker Math. Results come about when we have successes and we're able to see what works. Of course, the successes are diminished by our failures. Or are they? Anybody who has ever failed will probably tell you that they've learned more from their failures than they have from their successes. And these all-important learnings from their failures help them to bring about even greater results. So I suggest that we allow our young people the opportunity to practice, to develop results, and to learn from their successes and their failures. So I think I have one of the greatest jobs in the world. I get to work with young people who are working on projects that they care about. When they first start on a project, it's not unusual for them to doubt themselves. They often look to me and other teachers for the answers. That's no surprise, because that's the way we've trained them to think. that there's a problem, there's an answer, and the teacher knows the answer. Well, I like to dispel this myth on the first day of class. I tell my students, in this class, there's no textbook that's going to tell you step by step how to solve the problem. I don't know the answer to the problem. I may not even know the questions to ask. And by the end of this, you'll know both the questions and the answers better than me. This kind of message is both frightening and exhilarating. The students realize that their work is not just an exercise, but it really matters. These young people inspire me, and they provide a great source of hope for the future. So I'd like to share a couple of stories of young changemakers here in our community. The first one is William Malman. He's a 20-year-old changemaker. Coming from a small village in Brazil, where his mom is a cashier and his dad a bus driver, he grew up with not very many resources. Perhaps that's why he's so resourceful. As a student here in the United States, he's taking every opportunity he can to make a difference in the world. And I'd like to share just 2 projects that he's worked on. The first one came about as a result of a conference that he attended with other young leaders from around the world. They were challenged to come up with solutions to the problem of global waste. Well, William's team came up with the idea of smart trash bins that would collect recyclables and award people points that they could use at various merchants. His team worked hard, and they faced a lot of setbacks along the way. But ultimately, they were awarded over $100,000 in seed funding to start their company. Their company is called Binny, and it's located in Germany, and it's already starting to make their idea a reality. Closer to home, William worked with fellow students Monica Morales from El Salvador and Gabriela Tom, also from Brazil. They heard about obesity in our community, and they became concerned. In their home countries, they were used to seeing outdoor gyms, and they thought that outdoor gyms might provide a fun and low-cost way for people here to combat obesity. They proposed their idea in a Changemaker Challenge competition and were awarded $2,000 to start their initiative. They're currently working with the Parks and Recreation Department to develop a plan to install their first 4 gyms in Evansville. The next group of changemakers I'd like to tell you about are some young people that are taking their ideas from here to Guatemala. In Guatemala, they're working with men who are battling substance abuse and addiction. These young people are drawing upon their backgrounds in psychology, art, Spanish, and marketing, and they're developing a sustainable art therapy program. Just last week, a couple of them were in Guatemala, and they were introducing techniques for the men to be able to make paper by hand. Now, if any of you guys have ever tried making paper by hand, you'll know that it's a very time-consuming, very labor-intensive process. Well, this is exactly what the men need to distract them from the addictions that they are facing every day. And what's more, the paper can be used to make greeting cards that are sold for a relatively good price. The supplies to make these are readily available at low or no cost in Guatemala. So the beauty of this idea is that it does good therapy and good business at the same time, in a way that can be sustained without grants or donations. So the next example I'd like to share is of some high school students in our community. They competed in a local Changemaker Challenge competition for high school students, and 2 teams from rival high schools proposed the idea of bike sharing for our community. They argued that a bike share program would improve health and quality of life in our community. After the competition, they got together with students at our university, as well as administrators, and I am pleased to announce that in less than a year, their idea has gone from plan to reality. On Monday, there will be an announcement about a bike share program starting in Evansville with stations throughout the city. So besides the great impacts that these young people are having both near and far, they are themselves changed. Filled with a newfound sense of accomplishment and confidence, they know they can go out and make a difference. Daniel Gilbert, a famous social psychologist at Harvard, said that to see is to experience the world as it is. To remember is to experience the world as it was. But to imagine is to experience the world as it isn't and has never been, but as it could be. As humans, we're uniquely able to imagine the future. And I would argue that our young people and their imaginations provide a wealth of opportunities for the future. Just the other day, I was talking with my 10-year-old daughter, Greta. She became concerned about noise pollution. She's worried about people that live by busy roads and have to listen to the din of automobiles day in and day out. So I asked her, what would you do about it? She thought about it, and she said, I would create solar-powered cars without wheels. Now, many adults might say impossible, unreasonable. But I would argue that a little over 100 years ago, people might have said the same thing about the idea that a buggy need not be pulled by horses. Let's harness the power of imagination of our young people to address the problems of today and fast forward to a better future. How can you help? Parents, ask your children what they would like to change at home. Give them the opportunity to make those changes. You might just be pleasantly surprised. Educators, provide opportunities for our young people to develop not only their critical thinking skills, but also their critical doing skills. Give them the opportunity to practice and to learn from both their successes and their failures. People in the community, listen to the ideas of our young people. Offer your time and expertise to help make their ideas better. If you can, consider offering some seed funding to get their ideas off the ground. Even if the idea is not a complete success, your investment will not be a waste, for you will have empowered a changemaker. Yeats said that education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. Light the fire of a changemaker today, and watch the world get better tomorrow. Thank you.